This next person I'm going to introduce is impossible for me to exaggerate about. There's no one in the world outside of my family that means more to me. If it were not for this man, I would not exist. There would be no Penn and Teller. Oh, fuck it. Amazing Randi! I'm sorry, I just can't pull it together.
Finished shooting now? Yeah. I can't hold this in my hand. You notice they always lower the microphone for me. I can't understand how that is or why, but I take it in stride. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to again be present at a Reason rally, and Margaret Downey is one of the persons I have to thank for that, for facilitating it. I want to speak to you today about the farce known as facilitated communication, FC, which involves what's now most often called autism spectrum disorder, ASD, a subject that deeply concerns me. The first ever fully identified and defined example of autism was only found in 1941. But humanists and skeptical communities need to be very aware of this, and something must be done about it. The facilitated communication stunt is claimed to be a means of communicating with autistic children and adults afflicted by this complex neurological condition. ASD victims show widely varying degrees of impaired social interaction and communication, avoidance of eye contact, and strangely restricted and compulsive repetitive behavior. These symptoms show up before a child is 3 years old and can become much stronger and more dangerous to that person's well-being, though many mature into adulthood and survive with difficulty. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate that 1 in 45 persons in this country can be said to have at least some degree of autism. This is a figure that demands our very serious consideration. Different authorities and quite unqualified celebrity figures have argued that the mercury compounds once used as preservatives in some vaccines triggered it, specifically the measles, mumps, rubella, MMR vaccine, a notion now completely disproven, but still embraced by some. In March 1992, I was contacted by Dr. Ann M. Donnellan, then with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who told me about a situation in which she was deeply involved. What little I already knew about FC indicated to me that she was very, very misdirected and self-deceived. I told her that the security of the children involved in this research must have priority, of course, and stated that if I became part of the investigation, that would have to be the primary consideration. I also said that I would gladly participate without any remuneration other than my basic costs of travel and accommodation. She explained to me the difficulty of communication with the autistic children due to apraxia, the inability to perform simple coordinated physical actions, though the muscular ability is present. She told me that facilitated communication consists of the facilitator, an adult clinician or scientist, being in physical contact with the child, while the child has access to an augmentative device, a computer keyboard, typewriter, alphabet blocks, letter chart, etc., which the child would be unable to manipulate sufficiently well to communicate. She said that certain children had shown remarkable abilities under FC, expressing ideas and concepts that had formerly been believed to be far beyond their abilities. Well, I told her that I felt the researchers might be under the influence of the clever Hans effect, in which the facilitator, in this case, might be unknowingly transmitting the sought-after responses to the child. This suggestion was emphatically denied, and I was told that every care had been taken to ensure that this was not possible. Her enthusiasm for this point was quite contagious, but I was immune to such an infection. I'd already seen several videos of facilitated communication procedure being used on autistic kids. The adult facilitator grasps the hand, get this picture now, grasps the hand of the child with the child index finger extended out over the keyboard of the computer. In almost every case, the child is looking away, uninvolved in the procedure, often babbling or screaming as the facilitator studies the keyboard and simply uses the subject's finger as the tool with which he or she is typing. It's abundantly obvious that the child is not typing. No, the facilitator is typing using that child's finger. However, another reported phenomena that was reported to me, well, particularly in view of my own expertise, I was told that several of these children claimed that they were able to read minds. Yeah, sure. They were able, I was told, to thereby communicate with one another. The major reason for Dr. Donnellan having asked me to visit and advise the group, since, as a result of my expertise as a magician, I should be able to determine whether telepathy might be in operation. I went to Madison fully aware of what was happening there before I took on the task, believe me. Now, via the internet, anyone can freely order diet drugs and a large variety of items that are said to enhance athletic performance. If any problems are reported with such projects, the FDA can ask that they be withdrawn from the market. But hold on. The FDA requests that the product be withdrawn? They don't order its removal from sale? No, the FDA can't require that a product be intensively, independently examined because they haven't the necessary budget, so that quackery is just freely offered for sale. FDA surveillance and/or testing is limited by the huge size of the internet industry and the lack of legal empowerment and resources to examine products before they're put on sale. The number of supplements alone is estimated at from 40,000 to 75,000, including everything from vitamin C to weight loss products, which means that neither the FDA nor the FTC can keep track of them. And anyone, anywhere in the world can set up a web sales page with a US address on it and safely stay out of the reach of the law. I agreed to participate in an investigation of both these situations, though, please note, I was regularly being encouraged not to examine the basic facilitated communication, the FC claim itself, but I'd already seen it all in operation, and I doubted its efficacy. I was assured that all that had been firmly established. This task required that I visit Madison to observe the children in person. Believing that I could be of use to the project, I agreed. Now, Dr. Douglas Bicklin of the University of Syracuse has promoted the FC procedure as valid. Quite an error, in my opinion. You may have seen the very definitive, powerful video prepared and broadcast by PBS, very damning evidence against FC. In this documentary, the autistic subjects are looking away, quite unaware and disinterested in what is being asked of them. The fact that the supporters of the FC notion also saw this proves that they are ignoring the very strong evidence that the data originates with the facilitator. It does not come from the child at all. FC is not communication, it is manipulation. Dr. Bicklin founded his university's Facilitated Communication Institute in 1992. In August of 2005, he was promoted to Dean of their School of Education, from which he retired in 2014. This appointment was strongly criticized by the Commission for Scientific Medicine and Mental Health and by members of the special education research community. In 2012, Bicklin received a United Nations Prize that was awarded him because of his advocacy of FC, which again had been so very, very thoroughly and effectively debunked as wishful thinking, bad science, and nonsense on the 1993 TV special on PBS Frontline, as well as through my personal investigation and experience with this manipulative deception the year before in 1992. But please, you must remember the financial investment that Syracuse University still has in FC via Dr. Bicklin. It brings in millions annually from desperate parents and charities. Dr. James T. Todd invited me to speak at Eastern Michigan University in 2005, and as a result, he issued a direct challenge to the Autism Society over its sponsorship of a facilitated communication training workshop. Two of the attendees at that workshop, the Wendrows, were falsely accused via facilitated communication of rape of a child. They were arrested and jailed. But I must wonder whether the Wendrows' naive acceptance of FC and their previous vigorous denunciation of me and my ideas remained in effect after they had themselves experienced firsthand the damage that it can wreak. The Wendrows sued and they got $1.85 million in settlement. This situation was covered last year in a 6-day front page story in the Detroit Free Press and an ABC TV 2020 show. As chief supporters of FC at the University of Syracuse and the force behind getting the MIT Media Lab to host Dr. Douglas Bicklin's annual Facilitated Communication Summer Institute, those communication experts and scientists at the MIT Media Lab ought to have been the very first to reject the idea of facilitated communication. I've spoken there several times, but it appears that some of its staff are true believers in FC, and some are significantly beholden to certain supporters of FC for financial support. The MIT Media Lab endorsement of the facilitated communication farce is very disturbing, very discouraging, and alarming to me. I just cannot understand how such a splendid facility can give approval to this dangerous and useless procedure. I always stood ready to design and conduct comprehensive tests at FC, and I still do. But apparently the money interests have been more successful, having spoken louder than rationality. And in closing, I will tell you that in my early correspondence with Dr. Dunn, I learned that one of the autistic children she said I would be meeting in Madison, a 6-year-old boy named Andrew, had been banging his head on the floor, a not uncommon practice of autistic children at the far end of the spectrum. And when the child got in front of the keyboard and was asked why he did the head banging, he answered, by assisted typing, remember, that his head hurt. Asked why his head hurt, he typed out, correctly spelled, they claim, because you need to operate on my hypothalamus. This from a 6-year-old child and correctly spelled? Do these scientists really believe this report? Folks, apparently they do. Thank you, reasonable people. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. The amazing Randy!
James Randi, ladies and gentlemen. Came all the way in from Hobbiton to be here today. He's a good man.